Hi there and welcome. This is Lori Lauritsen with LO Counseling and Wellness, Master Certified Addictions Professional, yoga teacher, and of course, mental health counselor. Here sharing with you for Recovery Month some stories of experience, strength, and hope. And this is one of my favorite things to do, to just have people come on and share their story so that, you know, my clients and the world can see that people do recover, right? And that they do have long-term recovery, and every story is different, but there's always a part that fits for you. And this particular recovery month is actually more about holistic healing, which is of course right up my alley, right? So so I'm really excited to be here with Bonnie. I'm really honored that she was willing to share her story. And of course, as we talked about, you get to share as little or as much as you want to. This is your story. Even if I ask a question, I doubt I will ask a question that you won't want to answer. But even if I do, that's perfectly okay, right? Because this, again, that's part of it too, is that support and having whatever piece for yourself that you want to. But the hope here is that you share some things that might help someone who's still struggling, or help someone who has some recovery time, but maybe they're afraid or they don't think it's going to last, or whatever the case may be. So whatever we whatever shows up. People who know me know that we kind of are off the cuff, and things go how they go, and it's a fun time. So thank you again for being here. And then when we get to it, of course, you're welcome to share anything about you and your business and things like that, because I want to be able to share those things with the people that see this as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me and asking me to share my story. I think that giving back is what allows me to keep it. So, this is my service work. I love to show up when people ask, can you support or will you help? Yes, yes. And I am humbled and honored to share a little bit about what it was like and what happened, and a little bit about like what it's like now. Um, some of the things and the pits and the peaks, and some a little bit of wisdom that I've learned along the way. I've definitely made so many mistakes that some things are getting easier, and I don't have to continue to make the same mistakes. And the best part out of all of this is that I got to stop trying to figure it all out by myself. And I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of people are out there trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to figure it out and figure it out. And I don't have to figure it out anymore. I have a wonderful, supportive group of people that are there regardless. And there was a time in my life that I was isolated and alone. And it's not like that today. Um, I got sober June 10th, 2008. Um, Alcohol was the first thing that I started with and the last thing to take me out, but there was a lot of extra sprinkles and magic along the way that I picked up trying to fix and figure it out, and put a band-aid on the bullet hole. That really turned out to be childhood trauma. I didn't know about childhood trauma. We didn't know much. We didn't talk about that stuff in my family. And we so originally I'm from California. I'm from sixth generation in a little city in Los Angeles called Lomita. Everything I've ever known is there. My family, my friends, my community. I went to school there. I got recovered there. Um, and so that's where my story started. Um, my parents divorced when I was 7 years old, and I don't think that I understood at seven how much of a toll that was going to take on me. And I think that my experience from then on has allowed me to help the kids that are 7 years old now, right? Like, to remember what it was like and to be able to give back even in those little glimpses of my everyday, right? Like, any of the experiences that I've had, I know that it's for a reason. Like, I used to think, why me? Why is this happening? I have such bad luck. And now I am just grateful for all of it. You know, the the hard days and the better days. But um yeah, so I've got a great community of people um, that I wouldn't trade for anything. I wouldn't trade what I have today, even on my hardest day, right, for another day
Mm,
that I was trying to manage my life with drugs and alcohol.
mm,
Um, so I got June 10th, 2008. I was experiencing homeless. I had been very, very, very much addicted for 8 years solid. I had alienated friends, family, loved ones. I was all alone and trying to figure it out, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. And, my best ideas landed me behind bars. And coming from being a scholar athlete, having a full ride scholarship to Bible college, having everything pretty much lined out, when I found myself on the other side of some bars, talk about demoralization. Like, how the hell did I get here? But turns out it happens to a lot of people just like that. They end up somewhere, and it's like, well, how the hell did I get here? Um, I wasn't trying to look at the problem. I was trying to run from pain. I know that now, and it's a blessing to know that now. But the experience, took me really, really to what a lot of people say is a really low bottom. Um, I didn't die. I didn't overdose, and those are just yets. I know that if
mm.
I stop doing what I'm doing every single day to be active in maintaining this lifestyle and this recovery, that it's just a yet for me too. Um, so I got sober in a state-run detox center in California with no money. No, it wasn't a detox. I didn't even know what detox was. Nobody had ever said, "Hey, go to rehab," or "Hey, let me help you," or "Hey, there's this thing called detox." Never knew.
Oh
Never
god,
knew.
did you detox behind bars?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh
Uh-huh.
god.
Yeah.
Oh
And when I went
girl.
to treatment, they were like, "You can't shake here because they'll kick you out." So
My goodness.
my sisters in Z dorm, they would put me up during meetings, and they would bring me food into the dorm, and they would help. I don't remember. I don't remember much of those first 60 days, but I remember the love, and I remember those women, and those women are still in my life. It's
Mm.
pretty cool, that was the first taste of any kind of anything that I was really. That's not true. That's not true. Anyways, but yes, I did. I did. I went through it all, in there, and I learned. I had a lot of education once I got into a rehab, and just getting into a rehab, that's a whole story in its own. But the stars aligned. I was went to jail, tried to figure it out. Went to jail again. Okay, now I'm on formal felony probation, and I've got lots of charges and lots of things stacking up, and my good ideas aren't going anywhere, and I'm realizing I'm coming to the end of the road here. Um my surrender, it wasn't running out of food, not having a place to stay, running out of what I needed, losing my family, losing my friends. It was not wanting to go to prison. I had a 5.5 year joint suspension, and there was no way I could stop doing what I was doing on my own. And I went to my probation officer. She was like a 6'3" black woman named Mrs. Robinson, and I said, I can't stay sober. I can't do it. And she said, um, I told her, oh, I had talked to my sister's dad. Sister's dad. My sister's father. We're saving a seat for him still, but bless him, he's the one that knows the system and knows the game, and he's the one that said, "You have to go here. You have to call here. You have to do this." It
Mm.
was somebody else that had been through rehab, was a chronic relapser, as were those women that saved me. They were chronic relapsers. Not today, though, but regardless. So he gave me the message, said, "Call Acton." I call Acton. Somehow they said, "In 30 days, we'll have a bed for you."
Oh jeez.
And I don't know about you or anybody else out there, but like when you have your moment and you're like, "Okay, now I want to do it right now." Go now. Like
Yeah.
tomorrow is a real far away. And so on the 30th day, I was I was so ready. I couldn't believe it. I was so ready. Packed up my car, went and
Wow,
I
you
drove
hung in there for that 30 days.
30
Dang.
days.
Can
Because
I
I
just
because
I hate to interrupt your story, but can I just pause you for a second? Because, like,
yeah,
there's already so many, like, steps and blessings along the way of, like, nuggets of things that you talk about, and places where so many other people really struggle, right? I can't tell you how many people that I've seen that get that kind of answer, or I talk to them later on usually, because if they talk to me, I would have helped them figure it out, because that's, even if I'm not the person, like, I'm going to help you figure out who you need to get to get the kind of treatment that you need, whether it's meetings or rehab or detox or at home,
go
whatever
get
it is.
it.
You
Yes.
have to get it when you find that decision point. But you had, I mean, so many people, like, talk about blessings along the way, and universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is like packing this up for you between these women that supported you, right? And that's such a big part of recovery, and life in general. But I think one of the top things, right, is not feeling that isolation you were talking about, and feeling like somebody knows what you're going through, and
When
having
that
those
girl said,
people.
"Hey, tell him you want to come and see Dorm," that was the first time I had anybody want any interest in me in the longest time. Just that little bit. Um, but yeah,
In that
it
30
was
days.
a weird place to be. That come back in 30 days, you know. So so I drive to the desert and I drive to the rehab, and they're like, "Ma'am, you can't have a car here." So I have to drive home. I have to leave the rehab. I have to drive home where my ex-boyfriend is actively using in the home. And I have to
Mhm.
ask him, "Will you drive me to rehab? You want to get high first?" No. I drive all the way to back to rehab. Admissions counselor, "Hey, this is your last chance. You want to get high? I won't tell anybody."
Oh my
And I
God, they
said,
really
"No."
want to do that to you?
Hmm.
Ay, ay, ay.
And I said, "No." And that wasn't me. That wasn't a power that I had. I had been trying to say no for a really long time. Yeah, because if I would have said yes, I would have just said, "Let's go. I'll come back tomorrow." And tomorrow's already busy and it's already full for those that have plans for tomorrow, you know? But it aligned, and he dropped me back, and I did my thing, and like I said, it was really blurry for the 30, 45 days. Yeah, it was a long run, 8 years, just morning, noon, and night. Not much sleep, not much taking care of me, not much at all. Just running in one domestic violence relationship after another, just one after another, and didn't know anything about anything. When I remember now, and because I helped so many people, I remember going to apply for food stamps, and the lady said, "Are you experiencing domestic violence?" And I was like, "No." I didn't even know what that was. What I mean, I think they've changed the words now, like, "Is your home a safe place?" But I think a lot of people still would say it's a safe place, and they're experiencing abuse and they don't even know it.
Well, and most of the time they don't know what safety looks like. So how could they even answer that question,
True
right?
story. Yeah, like safe, like I know I don't have a gun to my head, but like not outside of that, wouldn't know anything. But yeah, so like just misses where there what I see was what could have been earlier intervention. Just these entry points where I see people just getting looked over and judged, but it's really like it's an opportunity every time anybody comes in contact. I have people call me all the time, just random people, and it's like, just plug them, just get them. They came for a reason. Anyways, so I kind of have my lens a little bit open. I try to listen a little bit deeper, see what people aren't saying. Anyways, I got distracted. So I'm in the rehab, and this lady came in. This was the first thing I remember hearing, besides the guy yelling at us about denial. This guy screamed at us in the rehab.
Oh,
Everybody had attitude, and this guy
so
was
you had the
screaming.
old school rehab, right? Where, like,
He
let me shame you into recovery, which, as we
I
know, does not work for most people. But it sounds like you were very,
I
very, like, committed, right? Talk about resilience. You had every opportunity to say, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." and you still
Uh,
did. So even despite the fact that you were getting yelled at to get sober, because it's not, I mean, like I said, there's like a minuscule amount of the population that that's going to work for. We know now at this point, for most people, if they could beat themselves up into getting sober, they would, because
yeah,
they're
we've been
already
beating
yeah.
ourselves up all along. Don't need to hear it from you, sir, but I did hear it, and it did land, and he did say, "You guys are all here because of some choices that you made, and you may be in denial about how much you need this place, but we don't need you, you need us. And when you think about your addiction, you think about what's worth it and what's not, and what I should do and what I should." He was talking about making the bed.
Mhm.
He's like, "We have these rules, and you are here, and if you think that these do not apply to you, you're in denial about how much you need to be at this place, about why you're here." Oh, yeah. But that was it. Most of the other messaging that came, I know now, was totally inspired. A state-run rehab, lack of resources. Like my counselor did my intake at like the 70th day or something, like my
Oh my
bio,
god.
to ask me about my family history, just because they had to bill it to the state.
Oh
Um,
boy.
so there wasn't a real active treatment plan. It was like I was on the gravel with the dirt with the girls at 5 o'clock, and they were telling me about their experience, and um, that's where I got it. I mean, those girls sat me in the book and they read out of this book that I had no idea what the hell it was saying. My mom used to leave the AA book out in the area that she thought that I was getting loaded in, rather than saying, you know, "Hey, come with me." When my mom passed, she would have been 34 years sober. She
Wow.
would have been 34 years sober. But what she would do instead was, I don't know if this was the Al-Anon in her ear or what. She would leave the book on the table, and I'd be like, "She's leaving this book in my way again, not thinking pick it up, never thinking pick it up. Like that's for you. Like there's something in there for you." Because I didn't know how to read it. And if anybody else has ever picked up the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you read it. It was written in the 30s, and you're not really meant to read it alone, anyways. But it doesn't say that on the front copy. It doesn't say, like, "Do not read without somebody that is actively working, has a working understanding of the context in this book." It doesn't say that. It's just like, I don't even know what this is saying. This doesn't apply to me. Um, so, yeah, she just left it out. She just left it out. Anyways, I don't even know where I'm at here. I
You were talking about how you got there, and these ladies were helping you
girls,
interpret, it sounds like,
these
the
girls.
the book,
Yes, the
right?
text, the text. I somehow make it through the 90 days, right? The lady comes. This was my moment. This is the lady. She comes on a panel, and her name was Shalaby. I will never forget her. This lady, she sparkled bright like a freaking diamond. Like she was the most beautiful, gorgeous, stunning thing. Like I literally could just see the aura around her. Like her spirit just lit up the room, and she was laughing, and she had a light that I hadn't seen in a very long time. And then she proceeded to say so many similarities to my story. And I could really, what went from wah, 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 coping skills, anger management, what she was talking my language. And she was talking about going through some of the things that I had gone through, and just being able to see that there was a simple, not easy, but a simple solution. Like, there's literally, like, you can just do these things and you may feel better. And I was out of ideas. And she seemed like her idea was really, really good. And if she can do it, I thought, maybe I can do it too. And I found out a couple years later that that same woman had driven 90 miles on a panel to be of service, to speak. And she was my sister's kindergarten teacher. She was at my sister's baby shower. And I was like, I wish I could do it again. I wish. And I told my sister, I said, "That woman saved my life." She's like, "That's my kindergarten teacher." So just little weird, small world, you know?
Lots
It's
of
a
interesting, like, synchronicities and connections in your
so
life
much.
that I
And I think, like, I heard somebody say recently, and I am just taking it with me all the way, that connection is protection. And that is what I have found, right? The more that I can connect with other people, their experience, what can I do for other people? What can I do to get connected to something outside of myself? Like that seems to be the solution. Not what I come up with, not what I think I need to do, but just connection with other people. So there are a lot of things, I heard her story and I knew like I have to do what she did. So there was a lovely bunch of people that came in from Big Book Comes Alive. Big Book Comes Alive came into the rehab and they were of service there, and I got a sponsor. And the rehab only let you do steps one, two, three. And I don't know about anybody watching, but like a lot of people go one, two, three, relapse, one, two, three, relapse, one, two, three, relapse. And they're like, well, you can only do three here, and then you go and do the rest on your own. But something inside me told me, yes, I was not following directions. That was normal. But this was something different. This was a feel like I was driven. I was pushed internally to continue forward. And I didn't have money, so I couldn't buy a notebook. So I had to get somebody to bring me a notebook. Turns out my drug dealer ended up on campus. So I'm looking for paper. I go outside and I'm like, Chris? And he's like, what's up? I was like, where's my boyfriend? Because I haven't heard from him, right? He goes, oh, you don't want to know, right? He goes, what do you need? What do you need? My girl's coming. You got to take care of her. Okay, your girlfriend's coming. This man took care of me. He sent me supplies, whatever I needed. So here we
Wow.
are. He's like, you need to do
Okay.
good. You're good people. I'll take care of you. So drug dealer turned it out being like, I want you to do well. Like, you need to get the message here.
Okay.
So I got some paper, right? Got paper. I ran out of paper. I had so many resentments on my fourth step that I ended up with like three of the
Oh
five
wow.
subjects.
Okay.
Yeah, it turns out I was pretty mad. I was pretty mad. I thought that, life was very unfair, that people, places, and institutions had done me wrong my entire life. And if you had it as bad as I was, you wouldn't be asking me why I'm doing these things. I had all these reasons and all this stuff. And thank goodness I was able to get honest and put it on paper and get it out of my body, because it allowed me to look and see what I was doing to myself, what I didn't need to feel bad about anymore, and what I could stop shaming and blaming myself for. Um, I got to say that I was sorry to the people that I hurt, you know? And when I got out of that rehab, I went and just started to spend time with my mom, who I'd been too busy, very busy. I'm so busy, mom. I cannot watch the show. I cannot go shopping. I cannot do this. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Never come back, and I just spent time with her, and I got to listen, be a good daughter, go back. She saw me go get back enrolled in school, get a job, do these things. And when I was 6 months, so 3 months, 3, 4, 5 months, I don't know. She sent me to go live with my grandmother and my grandfather, because my grandmother was getting ready to die. She said, go spend some time with grandma. She's not doing well. Mm, Maybe a month later, you get a call from Larry, that same boyfriend that's using in my mom's house. And he says, Bonnie, your mom's dead. She slipped in the shower and she hit her head. And I couldn't have picked a more perfect place for me to be than with my grandfather and my grandmother to receive that message. You know, not once did I think, I want to check out, I want to drink, I want to use, I'm too overwhelmed, I don't have support. I was so grateful that I didn't leave anything unsaid. I didn't have anything left. I had done all of that work. There was no like, there was no guilt there. I just got to show up and do the next right thing. And I'm 6 months sober out of an 8-year run. So my brain is like,
Barely
mush,
functioning again. Yeah.
mush. And now I've got a house to sell and four show dogs and a sister that's 18 that's gone somewhere. My brother's out of the house. I don't even know how old I am. I don't know, 27, 28. Just been doing my own thing for a really long time. And then all of a
Girl,
sudden,
I literally have goosebumps right now. Like That is probably one of the top reasons that I see people relapse is a big significant loss like that. Sure. And I mean, how amazing that you were able to make it through that at 6 months sober.
Mhm.
Wow, like seriously, I can't they keep coming. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I have learned that this is biospirituality, that this is just spirit speaking through us, and I absolutely love the validation. I do. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to adult yet. I didn't know. And so those girls from Z dorm, they showed up for me and they showed me what to do. They scrubbed toilets and they cleaned floors and they helped me do storage and they walked with me when I couldn't walk for myself. And just,
You're determined to make me cry today, aren't
it
you?
is just a freaking miracle. Like so many miracles. And I was able to take my 6-month chip and walk up to the door, and lady answers the door and she's like, "Hello, can I help you?" And I was like, "Robert live here?" She said, "Yeah, who are you?" And I was like, "I'm his daughter." you know. She goes, "No, I'm the roommate." And I was like, "Here, can you give this to him?" I hadn't talked to my dad for like 10 years, since I was 16 years old. And so I did that. I remember reaching out to him one time. I'm so hard headed. I reached out to him one time when I was homeless and hungry and in the rain on the back of a motorcycle. I had my friend Al pull over. I said, "Oh, call my dad, call my dad." And he said, "I love you. I've already talked to your mother. You're a resourceful girl. You'll figure it out." That's it. No help. No, hey, we'll take you to treatment. We'll get you to detox. My dad was in AA at the time too. Another miss. But anyways, I was determined to make that amends also, because I knew I had some amends to make with him. But my dad ended up walking me down the aisle with my grandfather, and he was able to make some amends to me, and this recovery, this dis-ease and this disease is a family. What I have seen is that it doesn't affect one person. I used to think that if I went away, I'll just go over here and they won't know. I won't hurt them if I go away, if they don't see. And I know now that that's the farthest thing from the truth. Um, it, it's a different life. It's a different life, but I really recommend, all the things that are underneath people's rugs and in the closet and all that stuff is really what I found, for me anyways, is what keeps people sick. That whatever it is, whatever that dark thing is, whatever's been unsaid or unheard, or it's an unnecessary pain. Yeah. Um,
Well, and what else is interesting about what you're saying is that both of your parents being in the rooms of recovery, and the way they handled that. I mean, and there's nobody has the right answers, right? There's no one right way to do things. And there are a lot of people who will give advice to say just cut that person off. But
mm.
the reality is like I'm not a huge fan of the word bottom, because I think for a lot of people bottom is death,
Oh
right?
yes. Oh
And if
yeah.
you're alive, I can help you. If you're not, I can't. So anywhere else along that, if we can, I'm not saying enable somebody's addiction, but if we can enable recovery, right? And like you said, if mom had actually talked to you about it instead of just sticking the book over there. I mean, and you may not have heard it, but it's about planting seeds, right? And these days we
Yes.
have things like an involuntary commitment to get people, paused enough that maybe they can make a better decision, right? Because it affects your brain to the point that you're not able to make those decisions. If you have enough of an intervention, whether it's an emotional intervention, an outside person, or like a traditional intervention. But I'm just talking about something happening, like for you being behind bars and all of those things that got together that got you to the place of getting sober, right?
Uh-huh.
That's great, but not everybody's going to have that in that way, and not everybody's going to have that before they end up killing themselves.
Oh my gosh. I'm so young to have such a small amount of people that are still alive.
Mm.
I I yeah, most of them are dead. Most of them are dead. Um, yeah, I am grateful, and a lot of them die after cancer, health problems. Um, but just going back to, for me, what got me in was AA, but what I know now is that the lens that I took with me out like this was not effective for, everybody, right? So what I had a lens like this, so I ended up going to college. I'm the first in my family to go to college, right? So I go to college and I'm learning some things, and I go back to college and I'm learning more things, and I'm in my I did a systems of recovery from severe mental illness and substance use disorder. And, I loved this professor, this doctor. Her name was Dr. Shannon Maeda. And she taught about substance use, and she taught us about harm reduction. And my whole all the blinders just fell. Just fell. Because I'm watching this documentary on Charlotte's Web, and I'm looking at this medical marijuana help change this little girl's life. And I'm thinking, well, what if that would have worked for her too? And I've also seen amazing results from folks that were IV drug users that had gone through harm reduction and had gotten just enough place and just enough seeds planted and just enough whatever to, and they lived to get to whatever. It was hard to work in LA, and they're doing needle exchange programs, and I'm early in recovery, and I'm not understanding, well, why are you giving them, why, well, so they live, they're going to get it anyways. And so I've been able to kind of I don't have this anymore. I definitely don't, because the more training I do and the more uh, lessons I learn, I see that there's no there's no cookie cutter. There's, not one size fits for everybody. Take what you like and leave the rest, as long as you're getting what you need, right? Uh, uh, for me, it was the 12 steps. For other people, they didn't like the language, or they didn't like the God thing, right? Call it whatever you want. For me, if I just think I can do it all by myself, it's gonna fail. So for
And I
me,
think
having to
that's the biggest piece, right? Is that, there is no one right answer. 12 steps are really easy and great because they're free, they're everywhere. There's a lot of support, right? And it's a philosophy of living, right?
yes,
If you drill it down to, its smallest point, it's a philosophy of living, of doing the next right thing.
yes,
And fellowship, right? I think that there are a few things, and I say this so people who have listened to me talk about this are going to, they're going to know, yes, this is what I say. I think the biggest reasons that the 12 steps are helpful, other than when you go through, and a lot of people may or may not know the steps, so certainly you can ask questions and we can share about that at some point, but we'll get off on too much of a tangent if we go there. But if you really break it down, it's a philosophy for living, like, healthy living. It's a fellowship, which means connecting with other people, right? Breaking that isolation of addiction. And as human beings, we need connection,
hmm hmm
right?
yeah. That shared experience is something that you cannot get. Right? You have read all those books behind you, but your life experience for somebody that's in it is, they want to know that. They don't
Right.
want to know what's in our cognitive behavioral therapy book, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that fellowship, and you're right. It's a design for living, right? You look at your behaviors and your actions and the things that have happened to you. Why? Unpack it. Figure out the patterns that you're doing that you don't like, right? I'm
Now,
having the
third piece is really just about, sorry to interrupt you. And
You're
that third piece
fine.
is really just about having, like, giving the brain enough time to heal, right? Because if you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days, which is what's usually recommended, 90 days is the minimum amount of time it takes for your brain to start doing some healing, so that you're not immediately reacting the way that you did in your addiction and immediately picking up, because that's what your brain knows to do, right? There's your the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that thinks, I don't really want to do this anymore, is not really online until maybe 90 days, right? So because it's this constant cycle. So the more time we can give away from that lifestyle, away from the substances themselves, is the piece there. But back to your story, and I would love to hear a little bit about, because when we talk about early recovery, to me the early recovery is like that first year or two. Obviously there's lots of measures that we can look at, right? But that first
Yes.
6 months to a year has its certain pieces, and then the
Mhm.
second year has its certain pieces, and beyond that. And I would love to hear from your perspective, like what were the challenges, what were the things that went well for you, how did you do that, both in that early recovery and beyond, and what were the biggest things that you would point out, other than a lot of the things you already shared.
Yeah. Um, so I was taught um, that the very first thing that I should do was go to a meeting. And so the very first thing that I did was I went to a meeting. Before I went home, before I stopped, before anything, I went to a meeting and my hand was shaking like this. And I said, "My name's Bonnie and I don't want to die,"
Mm.
because that's where I was at. I just didn't want to die. And they told me, "Welcome home." And I've been coming back ever since. And I have been following the direction of people that have been living a happy, joyous, and free, sober life. Those are the people that I have been drawn to. Those are the women that I follow. I want to know, what did you do to get here? Um, So I did what was suggested of me. I got some service commitments, which kept me busy, right? Kept me no time for boredom, you know? There was downtime for me, but it was really important that I stay of service. So I got commitments. My first year, I picked up the cookies and the cake and the cookies for the Friday night meeting. The Friday night meeting in Torrance, California was about 5 to 700 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So every Friday after I had worked all day at the restaurant, I would go stand in line go shopping at Costco, pick up all these snacks and cake for 500, 700 people, load it in the car, take it to the hospital where the meeting was going to be, unload the car, and just do it. Just do it every single week, right? I did that until I picked up a panel. I think they let me go into places after, I don't know if it was 6 months or a year, but I took a panel where I went in where a panel, if somebody doesn't know, like that lady that came and shared her story with me at that rehab, right? It's me going to share my experience in a place where people cannot get out to a meeting, like
And
jail
here we
or
call that here we
hospital.
call that H&I, right?
H&I, yeah, hospitals and institutions. Yeah. Yeah, so I got on H&I and I did a psychiatric panel in a inpatient psych unit. Um, I turned out loving inpatient psych. I worked in inpatient psych for a while and I learned a lot about trauma and people and brokenness in the system working in inpatient psych.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I got to get really familiar with sharing and opening up and getting out of myself and asking people what they need, asking people what they plan to do. It wasn't all about me, 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 me. Um, Even though in my mind I really thought, like, I'm just so nice. I'm just doing all this for everybody. I'm just so nice. But it's
Right. Well, and you mentioned trauma, and there's a lot of ways that that shows up, right? Trauma might show up, in avoiding people, not trusting people, but trauma can also show up in what we now call fawning, right? Or people pleasing, and we want to, and the more we take care of everyone else, the more we get a sense of self-worth. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we can do that to the point that it's of detriment to ourselves. And I'm not necessarily applying that's what you're doing, but you gave me a good
oh,
opportunity to
I
talk about
was.
how that shows up.
I was all the way away. It's continuous work. It's continuous work. I'm
So
still
you did
learning.
a lot of service work,
I
and
did.
we'll talk about what else you do that continues that service work here towards the end. But what other than 12 step and the service work and things like that, were there other tools or other, like, when you think about it, and again, because the topic of recovery month is holistic, right?
Oh
I like
yeah.
to call it the biopsychosocial spiritual method of living, not just treatment, but living. So looking at all of those ways, you talked about the community that you created, which is part of the fellowship and all of those pieces. But were there other tools or supports that you use that other people might like to hear that would be helpful?
Yeah, I had to find a therapist. I didn't know about therapy. Like I was like had my head in the sand for so long. Um, Nobody had ever recommended go to a therapist, see a therapist, you know. I had finished a human services degree, and I found, I don't know who it was. It was like a registered therapist or something that was getting her hours. And like she showed me like a genogram and was like, let's talk about your mom and dad. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like
So
but
it's kind of like
I
a
did.
family tree for people who don't know what that is, right? But it
Yeah,
also looks at the relationships and, you know, the addiction in your family and maybe the trauma and those kinds of things. So it's gonna, in the therapy world, we use that as a tool to really look at what's going on in your life and your family tree. And
yeah.
so
I mean,
what
that
made you
stuff
decide
was
to do
like,
therapy? Yeah, it's like mind blowing, right? What made you decide to go to therapy? Was there some point that said, "Okay, 12 step isn't enough for me," or "I need
yes.
more"?
Yes. So I worked in this restaurant with this lady, and her name was Linda. Linda's the one that told me to go back to college. I was going to go do all this stuff. And Linda was in NA, by the way. So me and Linda would just roll at the restaurant. She'd say, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Linda was amazing. Linda said, Linda said, yeah. So Linda, I don't even know how I got onto Linda. I got distracted.
Therapy.
Um,
How you
Linda's
got to
like,
therapy.
you need to go to therapy. That's what she said. You need to go to therapy. You call this lady. She's great. Okay, Linda. So I call this lady.
Okay.
Um, and it was great. It was a really good opening up to me. Um, just talking about so many things that had happened for the first time, you know?
How long had you been sober at that point?
Two,
Ish.
3 years? Two, maybe? I don't know. Oh, I was ejected out of a car window during my addiction. So I have a also undiagnosed traumatic brain injury that, so bear with me if I'm a little toot toot here or there. It's a
Okay.
whole other story for a whole other day, but I did not break a bone, and my guardian angel is a African American woman named Helen, just so you know. Yes.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
that.
Wow.
So yes, this too, right? So the holistic methods. So I've learned so many different things, right? I've learned, just yoga. I remember trying yoga for the first time. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. But I did. Like I tried yoga and I tried the gym. The gym was really good for me, right? I was 238 pounds and a size 24.
What?
I was not
Whoa.
healthy. I was not well. And so it has been a whole life transformation of trying to live this life. And all of those pieces play a part of it. What I eat, what I take in, how I move my body. I got into hiking. I posted the other day a memory of hiking Mount Baldy. And I remember when I first started hiking, I was big. I was still big when I started. And I remember just struggling to get over these boulders and then to be able to hike up that mountain and get to the top. It was a little symbolic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so weight loss, dealing with that stuff, unpacking why I was big in the first place, right? Food trauma, medical trauma, sexual trauma, religious trauma. I mean, I was like, I didn't even know all these things had a label, but here I was trying to fix it and figure it out all on my own. Um, so I mean, that was good. You know, the the ART that I do, the accelerated resolution therapy, that is what I found for me to be the most holistic, the most healing method. I mean, I struggled with this for 10 years with this PTSD. I was like this in the car, just a total wreck disaster. And it was drug free, and it was like an hour and a half and it was gone. And I couldn't believe it. So now I had no active addiction and less PTSD symptoms and more just ability to live. I'm just so grateful. And the more that we, experience, there's so many amazing methods, right? I've tried Carrie's sound bath and massage, and there's a wonderful lady that I met during a near mental breakdown. And my psychiatrist said, "I'll write you out of work, no problem, but you have to go see Jen and go get some Reiki." And I thought that was the most amazing, incredible, like, doctor prescribed holistic
That is
thing.
pretty incredible for a psychiatrist
I
to
love her so much. I'll talk
prescribe
about
Reiki.
Chantel all day, every day. And the experience that I had there was was like 6 months of therapy. I
Mhm.
sobbed like a baby. I felt her fingers like electric, like energy moving out of me. And it was healing, And I was open and honest and willing to fall apart. And I felt so inspired. After I left there, I quit my job. I started my practice full time, and it was just all good. It was okay. I knew like it was going to be okay. Here again, all these women just in my life at the right time, and me just being willing to take direction.
Well, you know what's so amazing? I mean, that's definitely like a big theme weaving in your story that as we talk about in the program, right? Like honest, open, and willing, right? And for you, I think that I wouldn't say it's a rarity, but not everybody is as open as you are to different things. And I'm sure that some of that has to do with your background. And I want to know what your degree is in because we haven't actually had that conversation. So when we talk about how you got to where you are today and just what you're doing now and some of those methods and share that with everyone, it's cool that you're so open to that, right? And to be able to show people because a lot of times what I've seen is when someone's into 12 step, it's only 12 step,
Mm,
right? I can't do anything
like this,
exactly. Can't do
blinders.
anything else. There's no other way. Nobody else has the answer. And for some people, that's what they need to get sober, and I totally respect that. And for some people, that doesn't work for them, and that turns them off, right? Not everybody has the experience that you did, where you felt like you were coming home, where you really connected to people in the rooms. I think getting sober in California is very different than getting sober here in Florida, right? There's really great meetings and there's really not so great meetings too. And that's something to pay attention to. And it really takes that resilience and that, the fancy therapy words of that intrinsic desire and that internal motivation, right,
Yes.
to make a change. Now, sometimes it has to come from outside of us first, right? Whatever kick in the ass
Sure.
you need to get
Whatever
sober,
it takes, right?
right?
Husband's
But
gonna
I always
leave you.
say that
You're gonna lose your job. Whatever it is.
exactly, and I would say consequences are might be enough to get you sober. They're
Won't
not
keep
gonna
you.
keep you sober.
Yep.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So before we get into you, well, I mean, we are talking about you, but before we get into the beautiful ways that you're sharing and your experience, strength, and hope with the community here now, um, couple things that I want people to hear is like what were those like the highlights and lowlights of those first couple years to show people what your challenges were. I talk about the roadmap for recovery, right? And some people call it the pink cloud when we're feeling really good, right? And some people call it the post acute withdrawal. Some people call it lots of other things. When you're in that space, I talk about it with my clients as the wall, that place where we're trying to find that new normal of how do I live life as a sober person. And sometimes you're not just feeling bad emotionally, you're feeling bad physically too. And how did that show up for you? And what did it look like? Let me try not to ask too many questions at once, but when it became more, I don't want to say normal, but when it became easier and picking up wasn't your first thought, right? You obviously in that first 6 months or year, whatever it was when your mom passed, had that big like kick in the pants that you could have. picked up again. But when would you say that your first thought wasn't to use? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
It does, and the desire for me to drink or use was absolutely lifted when I was in rehab. When I moved in with my grandfather, he was so cute. He's like, "Do you want me to put like locks on the cabinet?" Because they had like full on stocked wine, liquor on the
Oh,
whole
okay.
bottom. And I told him no. I was like, "I'm fine." And
Okay.
I did not. It literally it wasn't there. Um, uh, I I have seen too many people die. I've seen too many people die. Um, I know that that can't be a solution for me. I just can't. Um, I thank goodness it was programmed to me because they told me call every day, call. I had some consistency and I had some structure, so it was already on autopilot when I needed to use it. And I think a lot of people, they say they'll call and they don't call because when the weight's heavy, this phone weighs 1,000,000 pounds and the finger just doesn't want to push the buttons for some reason. But I picked it right up. I picked it right up and they came. And I found a community of women here that when I needed to pick it up, they came. When I got divorced here and I was in a home where I was terrorized, I could not leave. It was in the middle of a pandemic. I couldn't get a restraining order. The courts were shut down. I had to pack, I had to move, and I had gone through years of it. And I was just nothing left. And I remember calling one of the Lauras and I said, I can't do this. And I remember it was a Jeep, and then it was another car, and then it was another car, and then it was another car, and these ladies rolled up onto my lawn, and they moved into my home, and they came with boxes, and they came with tape, and they said, "Just go over here," and they packed for me, and they helped me organize, and they helped, and this is what I found, right? That if I'm able to reach out when I need help, and that I'm able to help when somebody else is reaching out, that I'm okay. And I have enough data now to see, like, I know for me that that works. That works, and I'm not like this, I still go Tuesday, almost every Tuesday, 17 years later, to a women's group, a solid women's group where when somebody new comes in, we welcome them. We say hello, ask people what how they're doing. And I've had the best of times. I got to go to international AA conventions, and I got to run into another person um, at a crosswalk and thank him for also saving my life. Just the most amazing things, in a sea of 80,000 badges in Texas, I run into this man, and it's awesome. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
What would you say
Um,
are like the top 3 to 5 things that you want to impart to those still struggling, or those thinking about whether they want to get sober, or maybe they're struggling in early recovery, whatever it is. Like what are the top 3 to 5 things that you would share? I know that's like putting you on the spot, but
no, I mean that's such a great question. I'm trying to think of like the most basic things, right? I would say build a solid foundation. I say that consistency and that support structure for me is numero uno, right? If I don't have a solid base and understanding of what I'm doing and who's riding along with me, I feel like I'm doing it alone. And I don't want to do it alone. So I think having a solid base. And for me, that solid base includes, right, like going to meetings, having somebody that I call every week and check in with. If I think I have a really good idea, I'm definitely running it past somebody else, right? I stay of service. I stay connected with my spirit, and that for me is my foundation. So if I don't have that, I can get the fanciest job and the cutest boyfriend and the best car and all that stuff, and it's gonna all go away. I've seen it. I've seen it all go away. You know, I had my home group was on Ventura Boulevard, and I've seen all the fancies and all the movie stars and all the things, right? And it all goes away. They die. Fancy one day, dead the next, right? So for me, this foundation is life and death, right? So that's
I
number
talk
one,
about
having a
that in terms of
foundation.
I talk about that
Um,
in terms of mooring lines. Like what are the anchors? Like what are the ropes that keep you anchored to your dock of recovery? It sounds like those are some of them.
yeah, that's definitely it. Um, um, Me looking at how other people's behavior, how I'm reacting to that. So I've found a lot of help in this, right? If I'm irritated by something out here, I know now it's here, like it's a me problem, right? And so I've been able to not be so upset, even in the midst of all that's going on, because I'm gonna love you no matter what. And that's given me peace even in turmoil, right? That I know that no matter what, it's just love that I'm getting and love that I'm giving. And everything else is just people making it messy. I don't need to know the answers. I don't need to know why, right? I can stop asking why. I can stop asking why and just know that, like, I can give it up. I can give it up. It's like, you know what? You take it. You take it. I'll get it out of it. And things seem to work out. Um,
So
I
it
don't
sounds
know if
like
it's
not
the
only that love, but there's the being able to recognize that if you're irritated with someone else, that it's something with you. That's the what I would call like a mindfulness perspective, or a being the observer of yourself, right? I am not my thoughts, I am not my feelings. Can I broaden this and look at it from a bigger perspective? Because that could be that pause. That's what I teach clients is what creates that pause for you, because that
mm,
pause could be the difference between life and death,
yes,
right?
and there's so much peace in that pause, and it's so hard to learn it, right? But if
So
you can
hard.
have that pause, right? If you could just get, I do it all at the same time too. Like you just learn to pause, just give yourself a second. Um, but I'm learning a lot about me. Yeah, I am like being mindful and um it's constantly it's a lot of mindfulness, really. Like and that
And
would be, not procrastinating, living in today, right? When we say one day at a time, like do it all. Like live today, not oh we'll do it tomorrow or like that's not living in today. That's not being mindful about the gift that I have today. And it really is. It really is. One of my very that man Al that pulled his motorcycle over so that I could call my dad was also the one that said, "You're too smart to be in this desert. I want you to go do something with you. You are too smart." And Al's the one that picked me up from rehab and drove me to the meeting, and I got to go be with him as he was passing away last month, and
mm,
he was a badass, awesome biker. He was really cool, and we got to share um, this grief and this love and music and laughter. And I got to scrub his nasty toilets like Shar scrubbed mine when my mom died. And I got to show up the way that I've been taught. And I got to be of service to somebody in their last days and to be a person that was called to be one of those people and to have the blessing to have money in the bank to get a plane ticket to go be with him and to be of service. I just it doesn't get better than that for me. I've got like I think well, yeah, all my besties are gone except for one, you know.
uh,
But Al died sober, and Diana died sober, and Kathy died sober, and all of these angels are still around me, and I know that. And I also, I might be kooky and stuff, but I do call on them, and it has been helpful. I do. And what would it hurt? What if there really are?
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I
yeah.
think
I've
it's
seen too much not to
all of
know
our
that it's not just me. It's not just me.
all of our experiences are worth sharing, and everybody, there's plenty of people out there that can relate to what you're saying. There might be people who, that's not for them and that's okay. But this part of your story is for the people who it is for them. So they can hear that and they can feel like they're not alone too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't care if you find your connection in the grass blades outside or in a tree or in Mother Ocean or whatever it is, just to be able to have that connection to something outside of myself.
Well, and what a many layered story that you had. And I know we didn't talk too much about the trauma. We just talked about it in general, and we'll keep it that way. But I think it's a really important point to share is that it is a many layered process, right? It's not just about not drinking and using.
Hmm.
It's about all of that pain and all of the hurt that we learned along the way, that we acquired along the way of life, right? Whether and a lot of it as a child, right? Because we learn a lot of the things that were, about life in our first 8 years of life. And and a lot of our life we spend unlearning some of those things and relearning something new. Right, and
Yeah.
it's, for those who are not ready to share their trauma story or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that you can't get sober. And at some point, that can be what keeps taking you out. And it sounds like you were pretty lucky that that didn't happen for you, but I see that that's probably besides a huge loss, that's the other top reason that I see people struggling in that relapse cycle is they're not managing their mental health. They don't know how to deal with their trauma, and and from a place of love and support and compassion and understanding, know that it is a many layered process and everybody's journey is different, and I'm so appreciative that you were willing to share your story with us. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure that you will help some people, probably a lot of people, get sober, depending on how many people we get to watch this, right? But
I
it'll
know.
be out there, and the opportunity will be there for those that want to share it. And I'd love for you to just briefly share about what you're doing now, how you got to where you are now, and of course I will share that information in the description of our video here when we do that as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. So, I was like I said, I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I applied at USC. It was the only college I wanted to go to. Here we go. So I applied to the one college, and I actually wrote my story as my entrance essay. I wrote about my experience and about my charges and about my rehabilitation, about my dream to help people. And I needed it was an uphill battle going to that school.
Mhm.
After car accident, brain injury, addiction, all this stuff. But I did it. I did it. I got my master's in social work with I don't know if it's a minor in, systems of recovery from severe mental illness. And it was amazing. I got to learn because I did get a degree in human services, but it turns out you can't do much with that, and you definitely can't make a living. So I had to go back. Linda said, "You got to go back to school." So I listened to Linda, and I went back to school, and I got into USC, and I've had wonderful opportunities. I did my internship in Watts, so that was nice. The only white girl there. I tried, but I did an internship in Watts, and I did
I
where
don't even
I
know
really
Watts. Was that
oh,
a
Watts is like a really it's where the riots were in the
okay.
70s or the 80s. It's a very,
Okay, okay.
very poor, 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 poor community in Los Angeles. Um, but I ended up doing like outreach and engagement on Skid Row so I've been under bridges and in drug infested parks and all this stuff, and this was all a part of this training. Um, so um, I have a social worker heart. I am here for some systemic changes, right? I uh, I I realize my dream has gone like this, and as soon as I got out of the way, it's kind of gone like this, real smooth, and I found my niche in private practice, um, helping folks, and and I'm able to help them with a lens of empathy and compassion. Um, that I feel very much rewarding. I started Papillon Health and Wellness, and it's going pretty well. You know, we're all survivors and we're all trauma specialists, and it makes me feel like I am giving back even in my work. Um, yeah, so we do, we do talk therapy and we talk about things and stuff with people so that they don't have to do all this alone. Um, yeah, yeah,
Love it.
it's been good stuff.
Yep, and we'll have, of course, both of our information in there, so if you wanna reach out to either of us, we can do that.
Of
But
course.
before we wrap up our time, is there anything else that you wanna share? Anything else that you want people to know before we end this?
I would say, if anybody's listening and they are struggling or think they still need to figure it out some more, that, that they're worth it to not wait any longer, that if they want some help, it's out there, right? Even if you don't have a penny to your name and all the excuses and all the things and all the hurt are telling you, don't do it, not today, wait till tomorrow, wait till this, wait till that, like that there is a lovely life on the other side of walking through the fear. And for me, in my experience, it has been amazingly worth it. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. um yeah, I'm just so grateful. Even on the tough days, there's still good days. you know there's still good days. i'm above I'm above ground. I get to stay
Right?
on this rock a couple days longer and help out some folks, so I'm all right. I like that. I'm gonna keep
And you
coming back.
do, and you certainly do, and I hope that we get to help a lot more people just by hearing this story. So again, I'm so, so grateful that you were willing to be vulnerable with us and share your story, and of course you'll be able to share it with your people as well. And yeah, and we'll just
Thank
keep
you.
saving lives and helping people and doing what we do, right?
Yeah. Oh, one quick thing which I think is really cool. So
Yes.
I have gotten some referrals from inside 12 steps from sponsors that want them to dig around deeper in their 4 step. Look
Oh,
at their trauma a little bit
wow.
more deep, right? They're able, well, like I'm nerding out so hard. I've been able to say, right, this is not enough for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I
And that's
love.
powerful because for a lot of 12-step programs, that was kind of the thing. Is like you only need 12-step. You don't need therapy, you don't need meds, you don't need any of those things. And you know what? There's no shame in any way you choose to get sober and do
Right.
as long as you have a healthy program and you're continuing to work on yourself and live a healthy life,
Yeah.
what that looks like for you, right? Because it's about building your own life worth living. So, what does that look like for you, and how do you create that? And if you have questions about that, if you're not sure, even if you don't know that you want to get sober, you can reach out to either of us because we can certainly, have some conversations, point you in the right direction. And even if it's, again, harm reduction, that's a fancy therapy term, but really, even if you decide you want to drink more mindfully, there's still room for you in our world and to have that conversation. So, any questions that you have, I know my consult is free. I don't know if you
Oh,
have a free
call. We do
consult.
consult all the time. I've got
Yep,
family members crying. What do I do? He's gonna die. She's gonna die.
yep. We're
Call.
here for you, for your family, for anybody
Yes,
that could use a little extra support.
absolutely. It's there. Yeah,
Thank you so
it
much.
is there. Yes, thank you.